Good afternoon, everybody. Happy Thursday, 11 or June 11, 1 1. I got all my stuff all done. I got my TV hooked up and all the bills, groceries all done for now, anyways. So we'll have a good long first show and then a short half show tonight. A lot of good stuff. It's really hot here today. Next, probably all the way till Sunday, it was probably going to be hot. So we got a Billy Bean that came out just a little bit ago. I think I found it on a couple other channels. So she must have a important one out today. Then I got a 35-minute um, video on the setup at the White House, behind the scenes there. So we haven't seen the scene yet there. So that's 35 minutes. And then a couple good 15-minute ones I got. And the military guy came out with another one. And a bunch of short ones. Our TikTok lady, what's her name? Casey, I think her name was. Uh, she had three good ones. They're 7 minutes apiece. Oh, Mighty made it. Yeah, another copyright again. I don't know what they're doing. I'll keep stopping. I'll keep stopping the music. I mean, saying their channel's name and everything. Did you see that clip yet of the setup at the White House yet, Fine Eagle? It came out just a few hours ago. It's all the setup, people in the back. It's kind of important video to play, I think. 35 minutes. We'll save that a little while. And yeah, so I got a bunch of good stuff again, like always. KK will be in. Carol. Lucy has her late. Lucy will be in late tonight because she goes in late on Thursdays, her late schedule. And Nick has a couple short ones out. Did you also hear Go on what's the chemical? There's a chemical. They're on lockdown at the DC. Oh, I think. Hey, Carol. Oh, Billy just came out again. Wow, I think we better play Billy first, you guys. Her two videos might be important to play first. So we'll get on this, and we'll get to the short ones later. We got a couple bitty ones too.
I also found
I don't know. Should we do the short ones first, or should we do? I don't know what to do. I want to make sure we get everybody in here when we get to big videos. So I guess I'll start off with short ones. Hey, Ball. What a minute. Have you been lurking? I was telling Flying Eagle about that chemical. Does anybody know what's going on in DC there? Billy has a couple videos on it. I guess I'll play the bit. I guess we better play Billy first. We'll play the short. We'll play the short one first. It's 3 minutes, and then we'll play our 20-minute one. So hopefully we'll get everybody in here. 3 o'clock show today. All right, let's have okay. Yeah, there's something going on in DC. So show number one here, Thursday.
Two p.m. So I have an update on what's going on at the Pentagon and an update on President Trump and Iran. So we have at the Pentagon an active emergency situation. Apparently, some parts of the Pentagon air system detected anthrax, and specifically on floors 2 to 5, corridors 4 to 7. And this area is currently in shelter in place. Immediately adjacent to these lockdown areas, the Pentagon is evacuating those areas. So that's going on. And we have this. So the Pentagon Force Protection Agency hazmat team is on site and is being assisted by the Arlington County Fire Department. They are currently active on site. They are doing air testing, chemical analysis, and the first responders are in bio level 4 personal protective equipment. That means everything, including.
Well, I was going to stop there and say, is this another event like what everybody was saying about 3-letter word or the needle? I wonder if this is I want to replay that, you guys. Hold on. We'll play this again.
So I have an update on what's going on at the Pentagon and an update on President Trump and Iran.
Yep.
So we have at the Pentagon an active emergency situation. Apparently, some parts of the Pentagon air system detected anthrax, and specifically on floors 2 to 5, corridors 4 to 7. And this area is currently in shelter in place. Immediately adjacent to these lockdown areas, the Pentagon is evacuating those areas. So that's going on. And we have this. So the Pentagon Force Protection Agency hazmat team is on site and is being assisted by the Arlington County Fire Department. They are currently active on site. They are doing air testing, chemical analysis, and the first responders are in bio level 4 personal protective equipment. That means everything, including a separate oxygen tank on the back. They are not breathing the air. And we have this. Pentagon spokesperson Sean Parnell. Measures are being taken in an abundance of caution, and that teams are working to identify the air quality threat. And as I said earlier, apparently the Pentagon has an air quality defense system in place, and it can pick up anomalies in the air. And according to U.S. Intel, what it was picking up this morning was anthrax. So it's good to be in prayer for the Pentagon. We have this coming out from U.S. Intel and other sources. President Trump is canceling the U.S. military hit on Iran for today, June 11. And he says an agreement has been reached. And as I put out in my last video, Pakistan pulled out last night as being the mediator. It was widely believed that the new mediator would be Qatar. It's possible that some type of agreement was reached this morning between the U.S. and Iran via Qatar. We don't have details on the agreement. We do have this coming out from Liberty Daily. President Trump says the U.S. has secretly been pulling oil through the Strait of Hormuz, millions of barrels of oil. And yesterday, Stephen Gardner put this information out from Secretary of State Marco Rubio, that the U.S. had a secret plan to pull oil through the Strait of Hormuz. And for the past month, they have brought 200 ships out, gaining 100 million barrels of oil. So this concludes my flash update. I love you, and I'll see you soon.
Okay, yeah, we're playing the first two because Billy had two big ones this afternoon that's going around. Everybody's sharing it. This second one is 20 minutes, you guys.
.26 time in Texas, about 11 a.m. And thanks for like, subscribe, and share. We have some breaking news. Excuse me, with the Pentagon on lockdown. First, we'll cover what's going on in space. So late yesterday, we had a C6 flare that also produced a CME. The CME is to impact Earth later today or early tomorrow and give us a G1 geomagnetic storm. We also can report that yesterday, June 10, a fireball was seen in the sky across the U.S. West Coast. This was actually a falling satellite that was disintegrating. This satellite, Clarity 1, put in the air by Albedo Space Corporation in 2025, operated in low Earth orbit, about 400 kilometers or 248 miles above the Earth. Albedo Space will be putting up an additional 24 of these low orbit satellites, which are part of the U.S. Defense Department's communication system. So that's going on. And now we have, with regard to the tropics, we saw yesterday a tropical storm, Christina, making up in the Pacific. Late last night became a depression, and information put forth by YouTube channel Hurricane Track. This guy's got a lot of experience, who indicates the possibility that Christina could cross Central America, go into the Bay of Campeche and the Gulf of America. It's not predicted to spin up into a hurricane, but could become a tropical storm and deliver heavy rain to Mexico and South Texas in the next couple of days. So that's going on. Now we have breaking news. We have Fox News reporting. A short time ago, the entire Pentagon went on lockdown. And it's believed in the south part of the Pentagon, there was some type of chemical release that activated the air security system in the Pentagon. We know that this also activated the U.S. military hazmat responders. And so far, we don't have any more information. Excuse me. Although indications outside the Pentagon by alerts or warnings from fire departments and so on is not taking place. So it's believed whatever this chemical release is inside the Pentagon is only taking place inside the Pentagon. So that's going on. And now we have this from U.S. Intel. Excuse me.
17, girl.
Late last night, Pakistan withdrew as the mediator between the U.S. and Iran. We note this morning, excuse me, on social media, President Trump indicates that talks are going on. We do know that late yesterday, before the U.S. second hit this week on Iran began, that a delegation from Qatar was in Tehran. They left Tehran before the U.S. Second hit yesterday began on Iran. So it could be that Qatar is going to take the role of mediator. Excuse me. We do note that President Trump today is saying that talks are taking place, although Iran says no talks are taking place. And we have this, that the U.S. In their strikes last night took out, in some areas, water, and in many areas, electric power, to 12 Iranian military bases. We also note that the U.S. military hit the Iran military base, Kagan, located in North Iran, adjacent to the Caspian Sea. Now, today, we have this from U.S. Intel that the U.S. military will hit Iran again today. And one of the objectives is to take Karg Island. Karg Island is the location of Iran's, so right about here. Karg Island is the location of 80 to 90% of all Iranian oil. It runs to this island in pipes. Then tankers go into a port on the island and load up the oil. President Trump indicates that the U.S. military will take Karg Island and will take control of Karg Island and its oil, as the U.S. has done in Venezuela. So that's going on. President Trump and the U.S. military continue to say that their strikes on Iran this week are self-defense. And we do know that Iran tried to hit many U.S. bases last night,
12 minutes.
located in Jordan, Kuwait, and Bahrain. And we do know that Israel is not taking part in the U.S. military hits on Iran, but Israel is making hits in Lebanon against Iran's proxy Hezbollah. So that's going on. We have this from Dr. Michael Sila, talking about the Galactic Federation being located on Mars, and talking about a psychic, Uri Gala, who said in 2020 that there would be contact with the Galactic Federation in the near future. And we know, or many people who have been following ET, UFO information, know that in 2020, the head of Israel's space agency, Chaim Eshed, said that the world, the U.S., Israel, had been working with ETs for years. Now, many of us are familiar with the Roswell incident. We had a Colonel Corsi from the military write a book that came out, probably 15 to 20 years ago, talking about the U.S. Having contact with ETs and trading technology and so on, like the Magic 12 group in the U.S. government. So now Michael Sala, Dr. Michael Sala.
Make your browser fast. Make your browser safe. Make your browser
Also indicates this Galactic Federation is an underground base on Mars, and where ETs are currently working with U.S. astronauts. Now, many of us believe, going back to Roswell in the late 1940s, being familiar with the meeting between President Eisenhower and the ETs in the 50s, many of us believe that the U.S. military has been working with the ETs for decades and has back-engineered many craft and so on. And that there was in place a secret space program, and the U.S. military has bases on the moon and Mars. I believe all of that is true. Now, my question I raised today is, what is the Galactic Federation? I have heard the term for years, but for me, I have no concept to associate with the words, because it implies there's some type of intergalactic space federation or group, but who's in it? Are there, is it implied that other species are in it? And for me, my perception of the ETs is fallen angels and Nephilim. So what exactly does the term Galactic Federation mean? So that's going on. And we have this from Enforcer, talking about last night's U.S. military strike on Iran. So we had, we heard last night that Iran said it closed the Strait of Hormuz and was attacking ships. CENTCOM today says the Strait of Hormuz was not closed last night by Iran, and Iran did not strike ships near the Strait of Hormuz last night. And we know the U.S. continues its blockade. We did hear last night the U.S. Embassy in Baghdad to shelter in place, and that the U.S. put out a new wave of strikes last night, hitting again Bandar Abbas. That's a port near the Strait of Hormuz, located in South Iran, and massively hitting again and again the Iranian military base located at the port of Bandar Abbas. We also have this, that President Trump, with regard to...
I'm 52 years old. Last month, I caught my wife crying in the bathroom because I couldn't get hard in bed. She wouldn't even look at me anymore. We're basically roommates. So I tried everything.
Fox said the IRGC had fighter jets up over Tehran. Now, we were hearing conflicting reports last night, and my position was, how could Iran be putting fighter jets into the air when, several months ago, the U.S. and their first wave of hits took out the Iranian Air Force? Well, it appears that Iran was able to hide some of their old fighter jets. I think they're called F-14, something like that. But we did see on Enforcer video of an Iranian fighter jet taking off from Tehran. So that's been clarified. Iran did have at least one, maybe two fighter jets it put up. I do not have details of what was their mission and what was accomplished last night. In addition to the one or two Iranian fighter jets being in the air over Tehran, were many U.S. fighter jets last night over Tehran. And we have this. This is very interesting. So I watched recently on Tubi a movie, Resurrection of Zachary Wheeler, that had to do with the concept of taking, and in the movie, a senator had a car crash and died. Then he was taken to some kind of special surgery place in New Mexico, where all of his internal organs were transplanted. He had new organs put in place, and he began to wake up and become conscious. And the doctor in the movie scene said, the nurse asked him something about, well, shouldn't everybody get all their organs transplanted? And the doctor said, well, that would lead to longevity. We can't have that. The point I want to make, and we've been hearing about organ harvesting in China, and we've also heard on a hot mic a couple of years ago, President Putin, President Xi talking about living to be 150 years old. So it's believed this technique of extending life is to do the transplanting of organs of young individuals, that are DNA compatible with the patient and extend their life. And the big point I want to make here is that this movie was made, The Resurrection of Zachary Wheeler, this movie was made in 1971. So that's going on. And we have this from Duran this morning. Russia is confronting China because China is selling drones to Ukraine, which Ukraine then uses to hit Russia. We do not know what was the resolution of those talks between Russia and China. We have this from President Trump. He's going to put out an executive order and stop the U.S. Post Office from delivering vote ballots inside any state that has denied.
I just got Fox on, and they said Trump cancels Iran strikes, and they say that progress on a deal. The crude oil is in the red at 3.02. Does anybody know what that is? 3.38%.
Voter information from its voter rolls to the DOJ. And we have this about California. California blocks the U.S. DOJ from auditing its voter rolls. According to DOJ Attorney Bill Esseley. So yeah, that's going on. And we have this from Enforcer last night. The U.S. military fired 49 Tomahawks at Iran at a cost of $2 million each, or about $100 million worth of Tomahawks just last night. And what was hit were the main targets of the U.S. The U.S., we understand, had 100 targets on their list to hit, but they did continuous and many hits on Bandar Abbas, and also, so we have Bandar Abbas right here. We have Qasem Island. These are all adjacent to the Strait of Hormuz. So we're seeing the U.S. take hit after hit after hit on Bandar Abbas, an Iranian military base. Also, Qasem Island, an Iran military base that also has an underground bunker area. So the U.S. repeatedly has been hitting these two areas. Now today we hear President Trump, the U.S. military are going to take Karg Island for the U.S. to begin controlling the oil in Iran as the U.S. does in Venezuela. So that's going on. A short prayer. This is from Habakkuk chapter 3. We pray, Father, in the name of Jesus, and many call Yeshua. that you bring upon Iran a destruction within, and that Iran is pierced from within by its own spear. And we pray, Father, that you deliver your people who are within Iran. And we say thank you, God the Father, God the Son, Jesus, whom many call Yeshua, and God the Holy Spirit. I say to my family and friends, remain steady out there, continue to pray. God is in charge and he is on the move. I love you and I'll see you soon.
Okay, yeah, so those were two big Billy's videos there everybody's sharing today. I got the next two Benny videos.
Down right now, as
10
President
minutes.
Trump says,
10 minutes.
we may have a boots on the ground invasion of Iran, saying at some point in the not too distant future, we'll be taking Karg Island and other oil infrastructure points and assume total control over oil and gas markets of Iran, much like with Venezuela, working brilliantly for Venezuela and the United States of America, says President Trump. Well, that's certainly an escalation here. Says Iran will be beat into submission. Karg Island is where 90% of Iran oil exports flow, and a considerable portion of the world's oil exports. Just a couple of hours ago in Guantanamo Bay, Pete Hegseth said, you know, all of the terrorists held in Guantanamo Bay, we should execute them.
The United States capabilities are robust. It's right in our neighborhood. The Don Roe Doctrine is in full effect, and we're going to be prepared to defend with all the capabilities we need there, but also everything the War Department can bring to bear. So my message was clear there, and it was great to be with the Marines and others, do a little PT, see how fired up they are about their mission down there. But listen, I've written extensively about it. These Gitmo detainees should have been executed, in my mind, personally, a long time ago for the crimes of what they committed against the American people. Unfortunately, the gears of American justice got gunked up all the way back to when I was a guard at Guantanamo Bay. In 2004, 2005, I was one of the guards, one of the, exterior guards, small part, in the first attempts on these trials that were just starting. And there was a lot of hope. Hey, we might be able to try these guys swiftly for the crimes they committed against the United States of America. And then the whether it's international groups or lawyers and the things on top got layered on top and it all got stuck. We're committed to the death penalty in that case.
Excited. We're excited about it. But it is a perilous time. There's a lot going on, and that lot might have hit the Pentagon. Pentagon is on lockdown now and evacuated due to hazardous material incident. Not a lot of hazardous material at the Pentagon. Obviously, it's not like a laboratory. They're not mixing chemicals there. What's going on here? Multiple floors and corridors inside the Pentagon are on lockdown, being evacuated due to a hazardous material incident. The Pentagon spokesperson confirmed that multiple floors detected an air quality issue, necessitating the measures. The significance is yet to be determined. The department is executing a standard protection protocol, including a shelter-in-place order for the affected area, Parnell says. Response teams are in place and ready to support building occupants. The Pentagon Force Protection Agency Hazardous Material Response Team is responding to the incident with full hazmat suits. So, I don't know. Has there been some type of chemical bomb? I'm not exactly sure. Police in the building wearing gas masks and chemical protective gear. Floors 2 through 5 corridors and sprawling complex have been locked down. Additional testing of the air quality could take hours. So there it is. So this is the emergency message that was sent. Multiple floors and corridors inside the Pentagon are on total lockdown. Three sources familiar with the situation told CNN Pentagon spokesperson Sean Parnell said they detected an air quality that we determined to be significant hazardous material incident inside of the Pentagon. I don't know. Is it an attack on the Pentagon?
Is monitoring a hazardous material situation at the Pentagon. And we learned this from their social post on X, Arlington Fire and EMS, saying that their units, including our hazmat materials team, currently operating at the Pentagon in support of the PFPA's hazmat team during a hazardous materials incident. Now, we don't know what that incident is, but it's the Pentagon Force Protection Agency, that PFPA. So basically all hands on deck right now over this situation. You have multiple, as I just told you, different departments and units responding to that. As we learn more, we'll bring it to you. This again is the Pentagon, where they are monitoring some sort of hazardous materials incident. More when we get it.
Here's the statement from Sean Parnell. Sean Parnell is the official Assistant Secretary of War Public Affairs. Okay, so the official spokesperson. The Pentagon has sophisticated systems to ensure safety in the building and its occupants. Those systems have detected an air quality issue necessitating precautionary measures until we determine its significance. Okay, so the systems picked up on something bad in the air. The department is executing standard protection protocols. Response teams are in place and ready to support building occupants. So there they go. They're saying this is a hazmat incident. Pentagon on lockdown as crews rush in. Hopefully no one's hurt. What else do we know? I'm not exactly sure. The Pentagon's unique design, 5 rings connected by corridors, makes it possible to divide the building into multiple ventilation zones, allowing officials to lock down affected areas without evacuating the entire building that houses 26,000 workers. Goodness. While officials say investigators are working to discover exactly what triggered this, the Pentagon has spent years developing highly advanced airborne threat detection system known as the Pentagon Shield. The program was launched after 9/11, the government's office building, from chemical and biological and radiological attacks. I just want to say this, I don't know, man. If you go ahead and look at some of the, this is saying in false alarm as responders rush to hazardous material incident. So who can know? Some are saying it's a false alarm now. Not sure. So they were trying to pass the Patriot Act. Some senators were saying, no, we shouldn't pass the Patriot Act. This is an obscene abuse of our Fifth Amendment rights, of the Constitution itself, and Americans don't want to live under a permanent surveillance state. We don't want to give a bunch of money to Dr. Fauci for development of bioweapons, which they did, by the way, in the Patriot Act, along with a bunch of other stuff. Create the TSA and all this stuff. It's the worst legislation passed in my lifetime, that's for sure. Well, a lot of those senators started getting anthrax mailed to them. They tracked the anthrax that actually came from American laboratories. You know, they were opening up a little white. If you remember, in the days after 9/11, there were these little white powder scares all over the place. And it was a total false flag, as far as I'm concerned. And I haven't seen anybody try and explain why all the powder was tracked to military installations. But it seems like they were running a false flag on the senators in order to necessitate or accelerate military action against Iraq, Afghanistan, get the Patriot Act sent. So, I don't know. I'm not calling this a false flag, but that's my instinct when I see things like this. Here's the video, it says, of EMS units arriving as the detectors go off in the Pentagon. So you can see that. See it right there. You can see people leaving the building. And so this is it. Pentagon employees received this following notice this morning as the building goes into lockdown. All right. You may observe response personnel in multiple agencies and precautionary measures taking place. Please do not interpret these activities. Probably interrupt, right? Follow the directions and remain clear of the area. Further instructions will be provided. Thank you for your patience. Pray for everyone at the Pentagon. Okay. Some are saying that it's a false alarm. It seems like the most up to date is that they're currently testing what's going on in the Pentagon. But a suspicious biohazard-like odor was detected in the A-ring, prompting a shelter in place.
Follow this big story right now. According to the Pentagon, the hazardous materials team is now scrubbing several locations inside the Pentagon's A-ring. That's the centermost location in that building. And this is a live look there now. So you can't see what they're doing on the inside. And again, I'm still working to find out when exactly this started. We know.
Okay. So there you go. Ladies and gentlemen, stay safe out there. As we always say, keep your head on a swivel. Pray that everybody is safe at the Pentagon today, and that this isn't something far worse. See.
Okay, our second video. I got a 35-minute one coming up here on the front of the White House. I'm going to share this photo real quick. What do you guys think of this photo shot? Okay. Second video, a couple short ones, and then we will play that big 35.
Record highs, so it's not exactly a
9
full
minutes.
collapse, but boy howdy, something's happening with oil. Is it because President Trump says he's going to seize all of Iran's oil and take their major oil depot, Karg Island? President Trump said Iran will be hit very hard tonight, and we're going to seize all of their oil. Enough is enough. Iran has been playing pussyfoot with President Trump in these negotiations, publicly undermining the president, launching off ballistic missiles, proving that they're not serious about a peace negotiation where they could have gotten, quite frankly, a pretty plum deal. But now the Iranians are probably gone a little too far, which isn't the best thing to do with the guy who wrote a book called The Art of the Deal, President Trump. The United States will be hitting Iran. Navy, Air Force, radar, aircraft carrier, anti-aircraft, and other forms of defense, together with most of its offensive capability, are all gone. We'll be hitting them very hard tonight. At some point in the not-too-distant future, we're going to take Karg Island and other oil infrastructure points and assume total control of their oil and gas markets, the only thing keeping them alive, much like we have with Venezuela, which is working out brilliantly for both Venezuela and the United States of America. Thank you for your attention to this matter, says Donald Trump. President Trump straight up saying that because of this, right, because you continue to keep all of these tankers, I mean, goodness gracious, look at the backup here in the Strait of Hormuz. This is the Persian Gulf right here. Here's the Strait of Hormuz. I guess there's some ships that are moving, but these big old tankers, right? Some of them have been stuck now for months in the Persian Gulf, and then other tankers obviously sequestered outside in the Gulf of Oman, unable to move. I guess you could argue that there's plenty of traffic rolling through right here and rolling through over here into the Gulf of America. It's actually become a super highway of tankers like we've never seen before. It's all well and good, but obviously this has been a disruption, and I'm not going to argue somehow that like $4 or $5 gas is a good thing for America. It's not, and I don't like it, and I want it to end. And maybe the best way for it to end is for there to be overwhelming and complete and total force of nature destruction of Iran's capacities to create oil, make oil, or to engage in the economy at all. President Trump has done what I believe to be a masterstroke in going to China and negotiating the Chinese away from funding the Iranians and from delivering to the Iranians their ability to have counter aircraft or countermeasures. But hey, man, they keep shooting things down. They keep shooting at American infrastructure and at our allies' infrastructure in the region. I don't know how long this was the eventual result. This was the guaranteed eventual result. If Iran wasn't serious about negotiating, then eventually you were going to have some type of devastating invasion or destruction. Remember Power Plant and Bridge Day. President Trump puts Iran on notice, warning the regime will be hit very hard. They have no defense. They can't do anything about it. We dropped $250 million worth of bombs on them last night. Talking on Fox and Friends, Trump argued that Iran is already feeling the effects of the strikes. They're in submission. They just don't know it yet. Okay. Trump said he's going to take Karg Island. Okay, Karg Island. Here we go. Karg Island looks like this. That's where it is. Let's go ahead and check it out on a map. It is the major oil depot for Iran, and it is where the oil is shipped from, and it's where the oil is refined so that it can be shipped. And it's way up the mouth of the Persian Gulf right here.
Welcome, Barry.
And it's very close to American bases in Kuwait and in Iraq. And it kind of like is...
First time in chat.
Tonight, this viral video of a Michigan single father chasing down a tow truck is
you're from. Thank you.
sweeping social media. Rachel Torres has the story.
Well, just completely sitting out here in the open, and would be very easy, frankly, for the American military to go and snatch up. So that would be a land invasion of Iran. So that's where we're at.
And
I'm not going to cheerlead it.
one other thing, I don't normally say it, but please don't do big cap letters on your words. Thank you.
But people make decisions, and eventually the decisions that you make are going to lead one way or the other. It was either going to be full-scale war, like just a war of absolute destruction with Iran and decimation, or there was going to be a tentative peace that I think everybody else in the world, including myself, was cheering for, and I wanted, and I cheerleaded for regularly. And I got humiliated, frankly, on this channel, because I guess I kept like biting the hook, line, and sinker that there was going to be a peace deal, and that peace deal was ready. And Iranian sources were saying it, American sources were saying it, Axios, Wall Street Journal, New York Times, everybody was like saying it. It's right there. It's right on the table. Iran's ready to sign. That's what the Iranian sources were saying. That's what their news sources were saying. But hey, as a sucker every day, I never want to lie to you, and I never want to deceive anyone. But we were reading the tea leaves. The market was reacting. The oil markets were reacting. President Trump effectively announced the U.S. will be putting boots on the ground in Iran in the near future. Karg Island, which is 1/3 the size of Manhattan, is located in the Persian Gulf, controls 90% of Iran's crude oil exports. There's roughly 1.5 to 2 million barrels of crude oil exports per day. Trump specifically said that this would be like a Venezuela-style takeover, and the U.S. would take complete control of Iran's oil and gas infrastructure. If it happens to be the biggest escalation in the Iran war yet, we will receive Iran's response shortly. Okay, seizing Iran. Oil infrastructure. Well, there it is. I didn't want it to get to this point. I wanted them to sign a peace deal. That's what I wanted. But maybe this is just the way that it has to be. I mean, again, we took the dictator out of Venezuela. You killed Ayatollah, and then you took their resources, and now Venezuela has a very, very different relationship with the United States of America. So here's the live reports from the Middle East. The Iran regime is in a zero-sum game. Any damage it inflicts on our allies in the Gulf will be paid for with funds extradited from Iranian accounts. Any tolls paid on the Persian Gulf Strait Authority will be offset by funds extracted from their accounts. Every attack Iran launches will only deepen economic and financial consequences that it faces. There you go. So the oil markets, wobbly, obviously, ping-pong balling. And we are disabling the tankers, the Iranian tankers that are trying to get through. There it is. Boom. So I guess we'll see. I guess we'll see what happens. President Trump on the phone. Iran has no defense. They can't do anything about it. The only thing they have is fake news. They have the New York Times who will write stories that they're doing great. They're really in submission, and they just don't know it yet. I would really like for the submission to be now. I'm not cheerleading or warmongering. I just want it over with. And I've been saying that on this channel for, I don't know, months, maybe more. I don't want America to lose. I don't want Iran to win. The president made this decision, and now I want it to be over. And I want it to be over in favor of peace in our time and security and stability. And that's what a superpower can provide. And I think that's what President Trump is doing here. I mean, eventually, this is going to be the card you're going to have to play. So let's hope that cooler heads prevail. Iran signs a peace deal, and we're done with it. But it is what it is at this point. Don't F around with Trump. See ya.
Okay, we got Chief Benny in. All right, we got a DJ Derek Johnson one. It's about 4. And then I got another short one. And then we'll do that 35-minute one.
Lives at risk. Under President Trump's leadership, the Department of Justice is working alongside HHS and DHS to secure the border and protect American communities. There's a lot of ways that we do this. It includes punishing those who exploited the system and smuggled unaccompanied children across the border during the prior administration. More than 475,000 unaccompanied children entered the United States during the Biden administration. 475,000. Over 300,000 cannot be accounted for at the end of 2024. The way that this happened was typically because the criminals calling themselves sponsors trafficked these children to the border, usually committing fraud to do so. And oftentimes the children were abused, assaulted, and certainly exploited. In some cases, individuals would sponsor multiple children, which required them to lie to government personnel and on government forms, claiming they were close relatives when in fact they were not. They would use fake or stolen identities and make other false claims during the application process in order to obtain custody of the children. I think I'm stating the obvious that when government fails to protect our borders, it is the most vulnerable who suffer. And this department and this administration has zero tolerance for unlawful activity and is committed to protecting children who suffered the consequences of open borders. Today, we are announcing the indictments of 3 individuals: Maritza Kawik Koch, her brother, Carlos Agustin Kawik Koch, and Gladys Marina Call Chen. This was out of the Northern District of Ohio. All 3 are illegal aliens from Guatemala who allegedly took part in a wide-ranging conspiracy to smuggle more than a dozen children into the United States by scamming the system and exploiting the loopholes created by the last administration. This is one example, one indictment, but it is not unique. There are over 15,500 super sponsor cases that we have identified along with DHS. And again, these super sponsor cases are when somebody sponsors more than 3 children, unrelated, and they're unaccompanied minors that come in the United States. I also want to announce today from the same district in Ohio, the Northern District, the sentencing of another criminal illegal alien who was convicted, also from Guatemala. He was a 27-year-old man who came to the United States, smuggled in a 14-year-old child by submitting false paperwork and lying on the forms, claiming to be her brother, proceeded to sexually assault this young woman. And these two cases, while only two, help explain how what was going on is really the stuff of nightmares. Now, these charges brought by the Department of Justice show the important partnership between HHS and DHS
It's not over.
and with the Department of Justice. All of us are going after those who illegally brought children to this country.
Okay, that was a big update there. I got a new 3-minute one I'm going to play, and then we'll do the 35.
A sign. A sign that your life still has purpose. A sign that you will rise out of the darkness. A sign that this war will not be the end of you. But let me ask you something. Did you fall? Yes. Did it hurt? Yes. Did you lose things you swore to protect? Yes.
I just found it.
But are you still breathing? Then stop acting like God has been silent. You are the sign. Every breath in your lungs is proof that God has not abandoned the battlefield. Every time you fell and still got back up, that was not weakness. That was war-hardened grace holding you together when your soul wanted to break. So why are you still begging for proof? Why are you staring into the darkness like it has the final word? It does not. God does. The pit did not swallow you. The pain did not finish you. The storm did not break you. So stop waiting for life to soften before you advance. Advance while it hurts. Pray while it burns. Stand while your knees are shaking. Faith is not proven when everything is calm. Faith is proven when the fire is raging and you still declare, God, I trust you. So lift your head. You are not forgotten. You are not finished. You are not marching through this for nothing. God does not keep a warrior breathing for no reason if he kept you here. There is still purpose on your life. So stop asking for a sign. Look at what you survived. Look at what tried to break you. Look at what failed.
Powerful one,
now breathe! Stand up and move like a soldier heaven refused to bury. Because the pain did not end you. The darkness did not claim you. And God did not bring you this far to leave you here.
Don't give up. God, not done.
You keep asking God for a sign.
I thought that was a good one. All right, we got a video that just came out this afternoon, you guys. Something that we got to look at. 35 minutes, so. Just came out this afternoon.
Guys, we're just gonna hold you really quickly. Right here, my friend. You're gonna be my security at the end of it. Okay? Hey guys, try to fill in as much as you can. There is a lot of us. My goodness. Yeah. Alright guys, welcome to the South Lawn. You're looking at the south side of the structure that we have for the UFC right now. This is casually being referred to as the underworld. There's going to be all sorts of production, extra things going on down here, VIP facilities, Octagon girl changing rooms, everything you can possibly imagine. Behind us is the Ellipse, complete with main stage for the event, big screens for fans and everything like that. We're going to work our way up and around to the north side of the structure. You guys can see the Octagon and the claw and everything like that. And then you will have relative open access to get your B-roll, stand-up shots, or whatever over the next 15 minutes or so, okay? We're going to keep moving along up on the side. Try to stay as congregated as you can. If you need any shots, feel free. Our team is bringing up the end. Feel good? Yep. Fantastic. Let's go. No, you can't.
Just good to share, you guys.
What is it called? Line or whatever.
We finally moved from California to Michigan, and it was the best decision we ever made, except for one thing. I'll get to that part in a second because it almost ruined everything. But first, we left Los Angeles last August, and the change was immediate.
Which is taller than the White House and will be towering over the Octagon. The cage is actually put together here where the fights will take place on Sunday.
I think this is important. I think is I never seen the whole outlook yet on this. This is my first video.
Pero bueno, que esperamos nosotros por si acaso. Lo bajo ya, para enviarlo. No, 754. Más.
Fighting inside this ring. These are folks that have fought all over the world, from Abu Dhabi to Denver, Colorado, and never on the South Line.
Is that okay?
We can't go there. Look at the sun. It's a neutral. Well, maybe. We'll try. I know la soirée d'anniversaire de Donald Trump. Yeah.
No, this is a good
Yeah.
25 minutes. 25.
Yeah, this way. Let's sit down. I'll listen for it.
We go 0.5. Hell Here's the door. It's gonna open. You're the man, OG. Is there any like special full screen shots you want? I'm just recording everything on my phone.
Cool any room in 90 seconds with this NASA-engineered affordable device. It's smaller than a toaster, cools any room in 90 seconds.
Will be happening on Sunday night. As you can see, the claw is above us, the White House is behind us, as the soft run, 7-type target going down, walking around, what
do you guys say? It's all right, as long as you stop it.
Pretty wild scene here, lots of people around. See for yourself.
Stop if you want. I guess that's too long, I guess. Well, that's what's going on there.
AT&T Stadium, Los Angeles, Inglewood, California, SoFi Stadium, New York, New Jersey, East Rutherford, New Jersey, MetLife Stadium. It's going to be hosting the finals. Miami Gardens, Florida, Hard Rock Stadium. Atlanta, Georgia, Mercedes-Benz Stadium. Kansas City, Missouri, Arrowhead Stadium. San Francisco Bay Area, Santa Clara, California, Levi Stadium. Seattle, Washington, Lumen Field. Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, Lincoln Financial Field. And Boston, Foxborough, Massachusetts, the Gillette Stadium. We are hearing that these are the 11 cities that are going to be hosting, and you can see the headlines that have been coming out. FBI officials are taking steps to prevent lone offenders threats ahead of FIFA World Cup matches that are going to be taking place in Houston, Texas. Here is another one. FBI details Seattle's security threats ahead of the 2026 World Cup. Here is another one. Philadelphia is a no drone zone. So they are trying to think about all the potential threats, some that we didn't even think about around FIFA, World Cup, and other special events this summer that are going to be taking place. And Houston officials are over-prepared, they are saying, for World Cup security, what to know about NRG perimeter, drones, alerts, and heat. They are preparing for every scenario, and we've been hearing the warnings coming out from the FBI, and also there's concerns as well about Ebola outbreak puts Texas health officials on alert ahead of FIFA World Cup in Houston, as Houston is going to be hosting the team from the Congo, and we're seeing those teams where there are Ebola outbreaks that are taking place.
Our 2-minute update with 11 cities. Hey, I got 2 Nick videos coming up. Nine minutes.
Industrial complex to rig the election against Spencer Pratt. And this is sort of the moment we've been waiting for. We've been covering this for the past week. We watched as Spencer Pratt declared victory on election night and was headed to a runoff against Karen Bass until a mathematical miracle happened for the third place candidate, the nobody socialist Nithya Raman, who somehow, through a bunch of late night mail-in ballot dumps, pulled ahead and made it across the finish line. We all knew something wasn't right. We looked at the data. We looked at the heat maps of the Nithya Raman votes and saw something very interesting. That Nithya Raman received a disproportionate amount of votes from one area in particular, and that was Skid Row in downtown LA. Then we witnessed the videos coming out left and right of homeless people saying that they were paid for their ballot for both Karen Bass and the Nithya Raman campaign. And we uncovered that Nithya Raman had been giving taxpayer-funded grants to the homeless shelters and drop-in centers, which had hundreds and thousands of registered voters all receiving ballots and most likely harvesting those ballots on behalf of the Nithya Raman campaign. And I've been telling you guys to hold the line because we knew something fishy had happened. And I suspected that there were things going on in the background and that the Trump administration knew exactly what they were going to do and was ready and prepared to strike. Well, guess what? I think I might have been right about that because we just got an absolute bombshell. Now, you're going to have to bear with me on this one, but you'll understand by the time we get through this video how significant this is. First and foremost, I want to preface this by reminding you that the chair of the Housing and Homeless Committee, the person in Los Angeles that has been responsible for allocating funds and resources and taxpayer money to the homeless industrial complex, is none other than Nithya Raman. Nithya Raman is effectively the gatekeeper for the money that funds the homeless industrial complex. She decides where the money goes, which agencies, which NGOs, how it gets allocated and all that stuff. That is her role as the chairman of the Homeless and Housing Committee in LA. And so if there was a major discovery of fraud and improprieties of how that money was being used, then a lot of signs would be pointing directly back at her. And that's exactly what the Trump administration dropped today. So it appears that the White House Task Force on Fraud, Waste, and Abuse, led by J.D. Vance, has been quietly investigating the money trail to the homeless industrial complex in LA. And today announced that they'd be wiping out all federal cash flow to LA's Homeless Services Authority. They just pulled the plug on the city's largest homeless agency and announced that they've pulled the money trail all the way back to 2021 and say that over $1 billion in federal money has flowed to the organization and has been abused, and that there is evidence of blatant fraud. And so you should by now be scooping what I'm pooping and picking up what I'm putting down here, that we just got the news that the Trump administration has been investigating the homeless industrial complex and the money flows and these NGOs and who's allocating it and where it's going and what's happening to it and the financial records since before the election even began. So according to a scathing HUD letter that just leaked, the feds have been quietly auditing a $1 billion black hole in LA. And they've discovered that LA's largest homeless services agency literally cannot verify the existence of 2,300 housing sites that are under their supervision. And what's worse is 70% of the contracts tied to those ghost non-existent sites reported absolutely zero expenses over the last year. And so the feds are officially investigating what they call obvious fraud. Now, let's again tie the thread together, because this is where everything I've been warning you about and telling you about becomes a reality. See, LAHSA, LA Homeless Services Authority, doesn't just run itself. Every contract, every dollar that was allocated, every massive nonprofit grant to these NGOs has run directly through the LA City Council's Homelessness and Housing Committee. And again, who is the chair of that committee? Nithya Raman. Now remember, just a few days ago, when we were pulling on the thread, we discovered that Nithya Raman's committee approved a massive $600,000 grant to one homeless drop-in center in particular that happened to have over 185 registered voters at that address, despite the fact that nobody lives there. Now, I asked Google's AI if the St. Joseph Center, which was the name of the center that received the grant, falled under LAHSA, and apparently the answer is yes. St. Joseph Center is one of the largest contracted service providers under LAHSA. They don't just fall under it. They are one of the primary engines of the local system, receiving millions of dollars in funding routed through LAHSA to operate outreach, housing navigation, and daytime drop-in centers across LA County. But remember, they were not the only one. We found countless homeless centers with hundreds, if not thousands, of registered voters at these addresses where nobody lives. And so let's think about it for a second. We have 2,300 ghost agencies, non-existent agencies, that are getting money doled out by Nithya Raman's committee, and they have thousands of registered voters at their address, which means they're receiving mail-in ballots through the universal mail-in voting system in California. And we know for a fact that some of these NGOs have already been busted paying homeless people to register to vote, paying homeless people for their ballot, and I would bet you $1 million that they're harvesting the ballots that are being flooded to these homeless drop sites that don't have anybody there to receive the ballots other than the staff and the people involved in these NGOs. And so here's the best part about all of this. They used federal money to fund the fraud that we're witnessing. And that means that the feds have jurisdiction. See, the problem with a lot of the fraud that we've been covering on this channel is that it's not actually illegal. Ballot harvesting is legal in the state of California. Registering to vote with a gym membership is legal in California. A lot of the fraud that we've talked about is not exactly fraud. It's just ridiculously vulnerable to fraud. And so it's tough for the feds to prosecute somebody for doing things that have been codified into law by the California legislature and Gavin Newsom. But the moment you touch federal funds, the inspector general and federal prosecutors gain absolute jurisdiction. They don't need permission from LA or City Hall. They don't need permission from anybody. By launching an investigation and freezing the federal funds, the feds have granted themselves absolute subpoena power to follow the money trail back to the source. They can look at financial records. They can look at text messages, emails of the nonprofits, the outreach networks, and the very politicians that authorized the cash flows. And so the story here is not just that J.D. Vance and the Fraud Task Force just cut off the federal funds. The story here is that the federal government just gained jurisdiction over the homeless industrial complex. And the feds are following the money, which leads directly back to Nithya Raman. And so I had a hunch that something big was brewing in the background, and now we have absolute confirmation that that is the case. My gut instincts are impeccable, and for that reason, you should smash.
Okay, the first one was Nick. I'm gonna do. I'm gonna see what I got. Oh, that one lady with her partner. She has one out 12 minutes, and get a couple more after that.
If we go and bomb, which we can do very easily if we want, and we spend another 2 or 3 weeks bombing, they'll have nothing left whatsoever, but you won't have the Strait open for months. If we do the bombing, a lot of people are going to be killed. Who wants to do that? I don't. And we'll have a signed document that's actually stronger than doing the bombing.
Stronger than a bomb. Peace without thousands more dead. That's what President Trump just said he wants to do with Iran. Now look at Ukraine. Same president, same approach, same desire to stop the killing. And there, the bodies keep piling up by the tens of thousands. What's the difference? Well, if you look at the headlines, you're not going to figure it out. On Iran, the narrative says that Trump is being outflanked by Tehran or by Tel Aviv, and the war will never end. On Ukraine, they say the war is continuing because Russia has rejected Zelensky's new peace initiative. Pick your villain, Moscow or Tehran. Well, they're both wrong. The thing blocking peace isn't Moscow and it isn't Tehran, and it never has been. And once you see where it actually sits, you're not going to unsee it. That's what I'm going to show you today, and here's how we're going to unpack it. First, we're going to look at what is behind Zelensky's peace proposal and the recent Ukraine arms vote in Congress. Second, who actually sits at the top of this operation, and why one of them was willing to blow up relations with a sitting U.S. president to protect it. And third, how Trump's answer in Iran reveals the method that can end forever wars. So last week, Ukraine's Zelensky sent an open letter to Vladimir Putin offering direct talks. The legacy media called it a breakthrough. Peace, finally. But read it, because buried inside this letter to Putin is a 1-2 punch. Punch number one. We've heard that you were promised in Alaska the resolution of certain issues concerning Ukraine and Europe. But you can see for yourself that Ukrainian and European issues are not decided in Anchorage. Zelensky is openly trashing the Anchorage summit and Donald Trump's role. Punch number two. Since the war is taking place in Europe, and since Ukraine needs security guarantees, it would be logical to involve those who can genuinely serve as guarantors.
I can't remember if I played.
We believe Europe should be part of this process. Those who truly have the capacity to influence the situation. So Zelensky says the guarantors have to be those who truly have the capacity to influence the situation, meaning Europe and the United Kingdom, like the way they influenced it in 2022, when British Prime Minister Boris Johnson flew to Kiev and killed the peace framework that was already on the table. And it's the same UK and EU who are now building their entire defense posture around permanent war with Russia. And then what did Zelensky do the moment that letter went out? He flew off to London and he met with Prime Minister Starmer, President Macron, and Chancellor Merz, all of whom read off the same script. Russia is collapsing, Putin is weak. Now is the time to double down on the very demands that have kept this war running for 5 years. And then one by one, the key think tanks lined up and pushed exactly the same line in the lead up to Zelensky's London visit. The Atlantic Council, which is essentially NATO's think tank, said, Ukraine just showed the whole world that Putin is losing control of the war. And the Council on Foreign Relations, which is the British Empire's main foreign policy think tank in the United States, said the same thing, citing Russia's mounting losses and declaring that we're now at a turning point. Well, while the think tanks and Zelensky and their friends laid out the plan, the U.S. House of Representatives provided the backup. The House passed a bill to keep the money and the weapons flowing to Ukraine over the Trump administration's objections. And its chief sponsor was New York Democrat Gregory Meeks, who happens to be a current member of the British American Parliamentary Group, the formal body hot wiring our Congress to the British Parliament. And that group's head is Prime Minister Keir Starmer. So this parliamentary group was created to maintain ties between the Parliament and the Congress way back in 1937, during the period of time that Britain was consolidating its connections to the U.S. foreign policy apparatus. And it is funded directly by the British government. So while everyone is running around screaming about APAC money, they seem to miss the role of the British government, whose strategic objectives in both Ukraine and Iran are the opposite of Donald Trump's. So if you're tired of being gaslighted by a herd of influencers who keep telling you to look over there to find the bad guys, you can sign up for Promethean Action's free newsletter. We'll help you look above the noise and look at the higher level actors in this battle. The link is in the description. Because it's not just British think tanks and government officials who have thrown everything behind Zelensky. The British Parliament continues to release records in its investigation of Mandelson,
6 minutes.
the man who was Britain's ambassador to Washington in 2025 and 2026, until his Epstein ties ended his career. Very few have taken notice of this revelation, which came out last week with the latest release of Mandelson's correspondence. It covers King Charles' reaction to Donald Trump and J.D. Vance's public confrontation with Zelensky in the Oval Office in February 2025. King Charles wanted to cancel Trump's upcoming state visit. And the publication that broke the story reported this. The king raised serious concerns about Donald Trump's state visit to the UK in the wake of the president's infamous bust-up with Vladimir Zelensky. Multiple senior Whitehall sources have told this newspaper that the king was reticent about hosting Trump at this time because of his treatment of Zelensky. One source said Charles was jittery about it, while another put it more starkly. The king did not want to do it. Now, think about that. The king was ready to blow off the president because of Zelensky. Stop and consider what the monarchy's actual job is. One of its most important missions is to manage the special relationship that is supposed to keep the United States in its assigned role as the enforcer of British imperial policy. And Charles was ready to torch that over Zelensky. Let that really sink in. Keeping the Ukraine war going was so important to British policy that the king was willing to risk a rupture with Donald Trump to protect the man running the war. And it's not just a one-off. Charles has now met with Zelensky 7 times, most recently on June 8th in Zelensky's recent trip to London. This is more than any other foreign leader on earth. Now, this is the great game, and it's been going on for well over a century. Ukraine isn't a fight for democracy. It's a proxy. It's a pawn on the board the British have been playing since the 19th century, the one that says Russia has to be crushed to clear the path for the empire to control the Eurasian heartland. So they push NATO and the missiles closer and closer and closer to Russia's border until Russia says no. And then they feed the proxy into the fire, and they call it a fight for democracy. Now, Anchorage was Donald Trump trying to end that game. Russia and the United States talking directly with the offer to bring Ukraine in as a nation, not a proxy. And that's why London said no. And that's why Zelensky said no. And that's why he now wants the game masters officially back at the table. So that's one front. Now watch what happens on the other. The same imperial architecture operates in the Mideast. Different proxies. And in the Mideast, the empire has been cultivating proxies for a long time, since it created the Muslim Brotherhood and revisionist Zionism and other radical formations. Same management, and for decades, the American establishment has played its assigned role as one of the biggest proxies. Its recent national security strategy says no. We're a sovereign nation, and we look at each nation as equal, and Israel is on the same footing as our Arab allies. Here's how the NSS describes our new position in the Mideast. The United States retains the most enviable position, reinforced by President Trump's successful revitalization of our alliances in the Gulf with other Arab partners and with Israel. Our Arab partners and with Israel. And yes, Israel has its interests, and we have ours, as J.D. Vance drilled down on that in his interview with Jesse Waters.
The Israelis and the United States, we have a lot of shared interests, but we also have some situations where our interests diverge. And I think where the president has been very clear here is that while Israel obviously has some objectives that it has, the United States' main objective in Iran is to ensure that Iran does not have a nuclear weapon. And we've actually, thanks to what's happened over the last few months, but really over the last year and a half, we've created the space necessary where the president believes, and I think that he's right, that we can get the long-term settlement to Iran's nuclear deal. Now, Israel may like that, they may not like that, but fundamentally, we think this is in the best interest of the United States of America.
Did you catch that? They may like that, they may not. The Vice President of the United States just said out loud that Israel's preferences are not the driver of America's policy. And this comes on the heels of the president's leaked F-bomb-laden confrontations with Bibi Netanyahu and administration revelations that Israel may be spying on Trump's Iran negotiators. So this is different. This is not the stuff of Israel runs the United States narrative, which occupies so much of the social media universe. The United States has its own strategy now. We're acting in our interests, not off of the old geopolitical playbook. And this is exactly what terrifies them. Because if Trump can treat Iran as a nation, not a proxy, and get a deal that's stronger than a bomb, the entire architecture is exposed as unnecessary. And that architecture is being exposed in Ukraine, where King Charles and Starmer and Mertz and Macron and the think tanks keep their proxy in the game long after a settlement could have been made. Trump is setting new rules, one where sovereign nations are the principals, not global elites directing their pawns. A world where Iran could function as a nation again, where Russia is allowed to have legitimate interests, and Israel functions in the actual interests of its people. That's the fight Promethean Action has been at it for decades, pulling back the curtain and showing you the real battle. So join us as a supporting member or a contributor. We are at a branch.
Yep. Sorry about that if I played that, but everybody likes her, I think, so. Okay, I've got about 6 more short ones. I'm going to stop at the 2-hour mark, come back at 7. We'll do 2 hours tonight in each one, 7 to 9. Don't go nowhere. I got the cat lady. Hey.
He said that he would slide right out, and it's not. And I'm like, there's like a bind. So, good afternoon, staff. I wanted to call this meeting to congratulate each and every one of you, except for you, Marcy. Every one of you here have done what Mr. Soros has asked of us. So far, we have the country almost to the boiling point, okay? And that means bigger bonus checks for each one of you. Ads are generating a lot of money because more people are on TikTok because there's so much of this being stirred up. Now, the first thing I want to point out is anybody on this app that is promoting hate, which would be talking about whites being unalived, talking about whites and their lives that matter, okay, because their lives don't. Anybody on here that is talking negative about the situation that just happened, anybody on here that is pointing out facts about the case, I want all of those comments struck. I want them all struck. I'm sorry, Marcy, what is it? I'm just saying that it seems to me like this app, all it's doing is stoking divisiveness. I have watched each and every one of you suppress people's opinions. I've seen you guys delete comments that said you should carry. I've seen you ban the hashtag white lives and the word matter. However, the hashtag Black Lives Matter is perfectly okay. This is the worst app I have ever seen in my life. I know you're not. Hell no, hell no.
Oh, this one game. Oh, wow.
I'm going to tell y'all, I hope that's a lesson that you just learned. My dad was a Vietnam combat vet. And I had to fight a lot of fights as a child. Come at me again, and your fucking hair ain't going to be the only thing that's out of place. You understand me? Try me again. I don't know.
All right, that's the first one for today. I got a photo I'm going to read. "12 arrested in undercover World Cup human trafficking sting," authority says. 12. Other lady?
Making this video, the parts of the Pentagon have been locked down due to a hazmat issue or quote air quality issue. That's what they're saying. I don't have any more information than that. The Pentagon's force protection is responding, as well as Arlington Fire is responding. I'm just reading. It says that floors 2 through 5 and quarters 4 through 7 have been locked down. The Pentagon obviously has a very complex network of corridors, and that's purposeful so that they can lock them down in the event of an emergency. So what's interesting, though, is this is sort of coming off of the heels of some other chemical issues that we've had, because today I was going to talk about the GKN aerospace transparency system chemical issue in Orange County, California, more specifically Garden Grove. If you remember, back at the end of May, 50,000 residents had to be evacuated in the case of a catastrophic blast of this chemical. And so essentially what happened is the cooling valve for the container that the chemical was kept in malfunctioned. And so it's supposed to be kept at 50 degrees Fahrenheit, but temperatures got as high as 92 degrees. They stabilized it by spraying water on it, and that actually formed a crack, and that's what made it stable and a blast sort of not imminent. It's super flammable. It's I guess a plastics facility that provides the materials for things like plexiglass, dental prosthetics, those kinds of things. But the FBI served search warrants yesterday to search it. That doesn't always mean that there's something nefarious involved. It could be, criminal, it could be terrorist, it could be so many different things. Obviously, this is very close to a community. Why is it so close to the community? Is there a fault of GKN? The investigation needs to be had. Is this someone tampered with the cooling device? So there are two things that the search warrant was really saying that they could seize. You can't just seize everything. I'll just read to you what those are. Seizure of documents related to chemicals stored in the tanks, as well as samples still in the drums. The samples are, the chemical is still in the drums. OC Healthcare Agency was supposed to have drained them last Friday, but actually didn't have the staff to do that. They'll notify the community, I guess, when they can. They can seize records related to the cooling equipment or anything else that has to do with what is used to cool it. And so what's also interesting about this is this also comes on the heels of the paper mill implosion in the state of Washington, in which 11 people were killed. I just think that we have, in my opinion, a critical infrastructure issue in this country, and it is very susceptible to both criminal activity and terroristic activity. All right, so at the time of me making this video.
Okay, I'm going to play one more 1 minute. I got a couple. We'll play one for now, and the other ones. He has 3 of these at 7 minutes.
Senate candidate with the bar so low, you practically trip over it on the way to the ballot box. And this morning, Republicans are already pouncing, and they're pouncing hard. We've got the tape, and you don't want to miss it. Now, I will say, Democrats do still have an out, and I will explain in just a moment. Plus, President Trump just completely pulled the rug out from under the Democrats. As long as Trump is sitting in the Oval Office, the left can never use ICE as a bargaining chip ever again. And we're tracking news out of the Middle East. More airstrikes are headed that way. Plus, later in the show, Southern Poverty Law Center went to Capitol Hill, and it did not go well for them. The CEO was caught in a total double standard and broke out into a cold sweat. These exchanges are worth the watch. Do me a favor, like the video, hit that subscribe button, and share this with family and friends. Welcome to those that are new. Glad to have you along with us today. Well, Maine Democrats picked their horse last night, and it's certainly a choice. They picked Graham Plattner, a candidate who's already carrying more baggage than a Delta flight at Christmas. And Democrats think this is the guy who's going to take down Republican Senator Susan Collins. Let me know below if you think he stands a chance, because if this is their best shot, I think Republicans are sleeping pretty well tonight.
That has got to be the weirdest campaign I have ever seen in my life. And from what I'm told, it's going to get way weirder. I mean, it's just, you cannot get more of a circus atmosphere than the Democrats have going right now. Trump has totally broke them. This is who they're nominating to these Senate seats, are these kind of candidates. It is wild.
Yes, it is wild. And Plattner's big idea, if he wins, turn election day into election season. 2 months of voting. If he gets his way, California may finally lose its title for the slowest vote count in America.
If I had my way, elections would last 2 months. They would be publicly funded. And if a billionaire looked at a TV ad the wrong way, we'd put him in jail.
2 months of voting and jail time for your wrong opinions. Very democratic. But it's not just his policies that are out of left field. It's the man himself. We're talking about a candidate with a Nazi tattoo on his chest, allegations from women describing him as a toxic abuser, comments referring to white Mainers as stupid mother, I'll let you fill in the blank, and a rather unusual fascination with porta potties, which I'll leave it right there since this is a family show. Most politicians would call that a rough week. Plattner calls it nothing to worry about.
You say there's nothing out there that could be concerning. And this may seem a little bit rich.
There's nothing out there. I just want to make this clear. There's nothing out there that's actually concerning. People will make everything seem very concerning because that's what people do in politics.
So let me get this straight. What most decent people would consider disqualifying, Plattner says isn't concerning at all. That should tell you everything you need to know about him. You'd think controversies like this would end a campaign, but instead, Democrats went all in, and somehow they're still claiming they're the party with the higher moral standard.
We have watched for a decade as Republicans have repeatedly lowered the threshold, lowered the standards for their candidates. And now Democrats are going to keep holding our candidates to an infinitely higher standard while we have Ken Paxton in Texas, while we have Donald Trump sitting in the Oval Office right now. And I guess it remains to be seen, but I also want to
Is it a high standard or is it a low standard?
Listen,
because I'm not sure that he's being held to a higher standard than anybody else.
Well,
An infinitely higher standard? Is that what we're calling the porta potty guy now? Is this their high standard? Because I'd hate to see their low one. But look, there's no fixing ignorance. Now, Mockler went on and tried to downplay a literal Nazi tattoo by calling it just a weird tattoo.
Donald Trump had a sit-down dinner with Nick Fuentes, and the very same people who were silent about that are now clutching their pearls about this admittedly weird tattoo that Graham Plattner has apologized for.
It's the same Republic too, Adam.
Yeah, I'm not.
Acknowledge that. It's not weird. It's a Nazi tattoo.
It's awful, yeah.
No, it's not weird. It's disturbing. And let's not forget, this is the same party that spent years shouting Jeffrey Epstein from every rooftop and demanding guilt by association. But when allegations surfaced against their own Senate nominee, Democrats reportedly pumped another $200,000 into his campaign. So who's writing these checks? And who's doing the vetting? If the New York Times could dig up the Nazi tattoo, the Reddit posts, and the allegations surrounding the candidate, why couldn't the Democrat Party? Or maybe they did and decided none of it mattered. Either way, they seem to miss just about every skeleton in this guy's closet.
Did the vetting process turn up the tattoo that became so controversial?
No.
The Reddit posts, did that turn up in the vetting process?
The firm sent us a thing and it had some of the posts, but it didn't have all of them.
So how do Democrats sell a candidate described as a heavy drinker, unemployed, and reportedly seeing not one, but two therapists? Simple. Lower the bar. Apparently Bernie Sanders is grading Graham Plattner on a curve.
I don't know what is true or not true. He denies it. She says something else. But what I do know is that there are people in the United States Senate right now who are not saints. I can tell you that.
That's Bernie's defense. There are already troublemakers in the Senate, so what's one more? That's like saying the house is already on fire. Hand me another can of gasoline. And AOC, she has a different pitch. Sure, the allegations and behavior may be hard to stomach, but she says voters should look past it because of health care.
Obviously, there's a lot in that behavior that's really challenging. It's hard to stomach, in some of it. But at the end of the day, I think that this is a choice. If the choice on the ballot is between that and a senator who's voted to take health care away from millions of Americans, that's the situation that we have to weigh.
Hard to stomach, but apparently not hard enough to vote against. That's the Democrats' message. Normally, allegations and controversies like these would end a political career, unless, of course, control of the Senate is on the line. Then suddenly everybody's got a stronger stomach.
What happened to Believe All Women?
I haven't followed these allegations closely, but what I have said is that violence against women in any way, shape, or form is unacceptable.
Haven't followed it closely? What a liar. It's his job.
Okay, that's our first one with her. I noticed that Jeffrey's there. He's moving his hands all the time. He can't keep his hands still. So, yeah, Bernie Sanders, God. I think it was 86, I think they're saying it was. All right, I want to keep it short on the first show. I got to go to the store, get a few things. And then we'll go maybe 3 hours tonight, 7 to 10. So I'll get the show set up when I get back from the store. But we got some good stuff out. 2 hours. Thanks, mods. Like, okay, Lucy, Carol, Tim, Maria, everybody. And we'll see you back here in a few hours. Bless everybody, the ball, remember, please like. Stay safe, stay strong, stay safe. Never give up. Signing off, show number 1, June 11th, Thursday. Chico dude. We'll see you soon.